That's fine.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining me. I suppose the first question is why are you here? What's the project that you're working on at the moment?
Okay, so it's Plan Bea the musical, and I've been cast in Plan Bea as young Bea. So the show itself, it's about Bea herself and her best friend Jess, and we watch them grow up. And most of the action is split between the late 1990s, where we see young Bea and young Jess as about 16-year-olds, and then it flashes to present day Bea, who's about 39 now. And the show itself is very much about the idea that you can't plan a perfect life. And even if you do plan it all out, it very rarely turns out how you expect it. And life is very much about all those unexpected things that crop up that you just have to navigate your way through. So in the show, Bea's mum passes away when she's 16. So this kind of turns her world upside down a little bit, as it would do. And up until this point, she's very methodical, very organised. She's never without her list. And she thinks she's got it all planned out, which we do as we're younger. She thinks she's going to do really well in her exams. She's going to become an artist, and she's going to find the man of her dreams and fall wildly in love. And that doesn't quite happen. Did you freeze?
Yeah, I must have. I'm not too sure what happened there.
Right.
So
did you hear everything I said? Where did you get up to?
You'd said about her mother passing away, and
right.
she was methodical and her lists and her plans and how they didn't quite work out. That was where I cut off. Sorry.
See, no, don't be silly. I feel that this is the joy of doing things over Zoom. Like this, nothing ever quite works out. But yeah, so she had it all planned out, she thought, and then this big event happens in her life, and it's just, we see how her life pans out, and then flashbacks to her as her younger self when she was 16. And the show deals with all the things that we can't plan in life, things like death, relationships, cheating, things that just crop up and we have to deal with. And that's really what life is. And what makes it wonderful is it's told through these wonderful female characters who are funny, and they're so relatable, I think, anyway, to a modern day audience. So yeah, that's what the show's about. And it's all set in Stratford-upon-Avon. So it's got a big Shakespearean theme. There's lots of references to Shakespeare. And we even have a song called To Be or Not to Be. So yeah.
Obviously, I've had a listen to the songs, and musical theatre is often slated for being so cheesy and over the top and ridiculous, but this musical seems really based on real life and not exaggerated at all. There's high points, there's low points, and I think that's a fantastic thing about this musical that I've had to listen to. So how did you hear about the project, and how did you get involved?
So I saw an audition pop up on Mandy, so I just applied via that, and I actually did a self-tape audition. Debs, who created the musical, she was running real in-person auditions and also self-tapes, but it was just at the time when COVID was hitting, so I sent a self-tape in, and then got involved that way.
So why? What was it about the show that piqued your interest?
I think I read the description of young Bea, and I just really, like you said, it just felt very natural, the whole thing. And I had to audition with a song called Butterfly, and I had a listen of that, and it's a beautiful song. It's something that she sings just after her mother's passed away. But often I thought, I got the blurb, it's a song when her mother's just passed away. So I thought it would be quite doom and gloom, very upset, but it's about butterflies and just the fact that she wants to be floating with her mum, and she wants to ignore what's happened. So it's a very beautiful song, although there's light and shade, and then there's moments where she's really upset. It takes a real journey. So that was my first introduction to the show, and the first bit I saw, and I was like, I love that song. So that kind of got me
in. So obviously taking on a role that is so real, do you think that was easier to portray because it's so realistic, or was that more difficult because you were art imitating life sort of influence?
personally for me, because when you read a 16-year-old girl, often they're a bit two-dimensional, if that makes sense. And you expect them to be sweet and this and that. And I knew that she was quite organised. But if you read the script, she's a proper 16-year-old girl. She's got that both sides. She's a bit tough. She says her sarky comments to her parents, and yet she has her vulnerability. It just felt very real. And it took me back to when I was 16, and it's just like, yeah, she can be very lovely and sweet, but you also have that other side. You've got a lot going on at 16, you're changing. And I feel like the script really captured that. It was funny and like relatable, like you said. So for me, it was easier than playing someone who was just quite one level.
Did you like, obviously because it's realistic, there's a lot of things that you can relate to as a performer. Did you find that easy? Was it to draw on those influences, or did you find it quite difficult to bring yourself back, if that makes sense, in your mind?
I think if you can relate to a character on any level, that helps when you're trying to portray them. Even if obviously you haven't had exactly the same experiences of them, but just, I mean, all growing up, teenage years are tough years. So I think anybody could relate to that. So even if that's not my exact experience, drawing on my own experiences, and obviously she's been through something very traumatic, losing her mother, you can draw on the things that have happened to you in your life that have maybe on that level. So I think that's always a bonus if they feel relatable and there's things that hit you and you think, okay, I get it. I know why or where she's going with this.
So we touched on it quite a bit there about the show being relatable, but why should people give the show a watch, a listen? What is it that will resonate with people?
So I recently read the newest version of the script, and I hadn't read it for a few weeks. And I read the script and I come away and it's just a real heartwarming, uplifting story. And it just makes me smile. And I just feel like there's because you go on this journey with the characters and you see them in the space of like the length of a show, you see her from a 16-year-old and all these things that have happened in someone's life. By the time you get to the end, you feel like you've been on that journey with her, and you're like, you're there, and it's just a real feel good. And I don't want to give too much away, but it's a nice, happy, positive ending. So and it's very much the fact that the whole show is called Plan B. So when things don't work out, when your plan A doesn't go to plan, life still works itself out in a way. So I think it's just everybody can take something from that.
The show's created by a British all-female crew, isn't it?
So we say that again, you just cut out for a second.
It's created by an all-female British creative team.
Yeah, we've got an all-female creative team, So it's very much a show by women, about women, for women. Obviously, men can watch it and get their enjoyment out of it, but it's very relatable on that front. And there's a host of women that are portrayed, and they're all strong characters in their own way, and they're a fun group of women to play.
I was just going to say, because obviously within the story, the women are, like you said, strong leads. That it's not, none of them are two-dimensional, or that women are often seen in films and musicals. They are fully fledged characters. That are people that you know, like there are people who I know even today are still compulsive listers, if that's a word. But and people who have gone through traumatic things, you see these things in people, and it's just it is hyper realistic. I know we've talked about that a lot, but it's just so real. So where can people stay up to date with the show and how to follow where it's going on its journey?
So we've got a Twitter account and we've got an Instagram account, and we keep that very up to date with all things that are going on and ways to get involved. I think, did you reach out to Debs? Was it on Twitter? Just
Instagram.
You found us. So we keep that very up to date, so you can see all our developments on there and little snippets of what's going on.
So I suppose that's the show. What about what what about you? What have you been doing to keep yourself busy? Obviously, you've had this project, keeping up your time. But is there anything that you've been doing to help, with the time that you've obviously everything's closed down and contained?
So because of this show, actually, so originally we were going to do a presentation performance of the show in April last year, and that was the plan. We got cast, I think it was in March, and the presentation performance was going to be in April. And so it was going to be a short, intense period to get ready for this presentation workshop of the show. And then everything happened. So the focus of it shifted, and Deb's decided, okay, so if we're going to be at home, what we're going to use this time for is to get the demos ready. So we did a lot of at-home recording. We all had to, well, for me, very much, it was learning a new skill. I had to buy my microphone and learn the software. And it was really enjoyable process, but obviously it had its challenges, because a lot of the songs in the show were duets or group numbers and things like that. And there's something that you can't replace, being in a room together and singing together and bouncing off each other. So we've gone as kind of far as we can go in terms of like at home. So I've now got my recording kit at home, and I've got a bit more, I wouldn't say I was particularly tech savvy individual, but I feel like I've got really comfortable with it and I really enjoyed the process. So I've actually been looking into doing some voiceover work and things like that, and going down that route while we're at home, and I've got the equipment, and it's just something that I hadn't really considered before, but because of this project and because of having this time at home, it's something I'm gonna start to explore.
I think, I've done lots of interviews with people who created musicals during lockdown, and the really interesting thing is performing through a microphone at home. I find that, I've done a little bit of performing through my life, but sitting there and performing to a laptop boggles my mind. Like, did you find that recording on your own really difficult to do?
Yes, it definitely had its challenges, especially some of the songs that I'm in, I don't sing. There's one song called More Than Us, and it's a song sung by Pearl, my mother, to young Bea. And I don't sing in it. She's singing to me, telling me about the man I should be looking for. And I've got a lot of dialogue where I reply to her and I'm like, oh, okay, mum, da, da, da. But she's obviously not there to act against. So just recording those little few words in isolation and then trying to add them in and make them sound very natural and just like a response rather than a bit stilted. Yeah, that was a challenge. It took a few attempts, but we got there, I think.
Yeah, I think it can't be heard through the songs, because the songs sound the same quality, the same standard, the same, as professionally performed musicals from before. And the songs are so moving as well. They do sound like you guys are singing to each other, which is just powerful. So like you said, they can follow Plan Bea on Instagram or on Twitter to stay up to date with what the show's doing. And so I just want to end this by saying thank you very much. And I shall speak to you soon.
Thank you very much for having me. Wonderful.
Thank you very much. Bye. Bye.